Hey guys, my name is David, and I'm making this video because my dad sent me an email, and I wasn't planning on doing this. I thought, like this part of my life I just put behind me. I know as I'm making this I have difficulty speaking, and that's why you see me having problems, and I do suffer with a lot of pain. So my dad sent me an email about the VISP vaccine injury program, saying that it's in disarray, that it's in shambles. And does that surprise me? Of course it doesn't surprise me. I just saw a whistleblower on, what was it? I don't know if it was CTV News, saying that the staff there, and don't take me on this, but I just saw the video, okay? That the staff there played ping pong, and they knew this, like this program was a joke. That's what I just heard, and I do believe it, but I can't verify it. They allocated something like $50 million, $50 million, and I don't know, when I was looking at 2023, I was just looking through yesterday, only because of seeing this, I decided, maybe I will fight for this, for what happened to me. And it was 2023, I don't know what month, but it said only out of, it was like 4,000 cases, only 217 cases had been agreed upon, 217. And only $2.3 million of that $50 million had been given out. That's a travesty. This is the way of big pharma. We know this. And I may get flagged for this, but what do I care? I just want to tell my story once again. I need no notes. I don't need any of that stuff. It's a complicated story, but because someone got myocarditis or something happened to them and now they're not well, why do those people deserve something and I don't? Why not? You hear my story, it's a nightmare. Prior to this, I have two main intractable pain syndromes. One of my full body, it's like CRPS. So the worst type of pain syndromes that there are. And I was diagnosed just prior to this happening with adhesive arachnoiditis of my spine. So my legs burn. At the time I had already had a lot of difficulty walking. If you look at those pain disorders, they're very painful, and I suffer with other pains, injuries on my body that are quite painful. But the main thing is that I was dealing with them. I knew what they were. I dealt with these things on a daily basis. I was getting better in life. And I'm at a point where, I'm in two schools at once, and I'm pushing forward. That's what I'm doing. So I'm just saying that's where I am. Diagnosis had evaded me for up to 2 decades. I don't like dealing with the medical community because of things that I tell them that are true that they never saw for many years, and it's just the state of the system. But so if you know what adhesive arachnoiditis is, I was really concerned about getting this shot, as anyone should be. This is inflammation of my spine. This is a progressive disorder of inflammation of my spine, scar tissue that builds up in your spine and attaches to your canal wall and stuff, and produces MS-like symptoms, but much more painful. And so I just got that diagnosis, but I'd had it since 2009. And there was propaganda everywhere. Propaganda was everywhere. You can't go to this shopping place. I'm in Canada. You can't go to this place. You can't go to that place unless you have this card. I felt really forced, and and it was very uncomfortable for me. And I did all the necessary actions I should have done. Right, I did all the necessary actions. I called at least 4 pharmacies, my own and a few more, to see what each opinions were. What do I do with this? Have you heard of this? Can you look into this? And you know, it's like, and I do forget this, but I think they ask you to sign a thing of, you know, autoimmune disorders. If you have an autoimmune disorder, sign this, because we don't want to be liable for how we're going to destroy your body. That's essentially it. But yet they were throwing it down our throats to get it, or else you can't go out and see this person. And that was my case. So it's about 6 months that I waited, and man, I remember the lineups. It was like people couldn't wait. You know, I couldn't even get a spot to get in to get one at first. I was like, wow. And you know, finally I did at my own pharmacy. And I'm also dealing with a lot of abdominal pain that I have intractable abdominal pain too. So if I step out and take a bite, I have to do that. These are things I suffered with for a long time before this. And the difficulty you see with me on camera here, one of them is truly painful that it left me with, and one that you just don't see in other people. It's one of the unfortunate things that has happened to me. Give me a second. I now have an abdominal disorder that is so painful, that was induced by Moderna, that in men it's 1 in 280,000. 1 in 280,000. How does that help me? These are the things I'm up against. But just let me tell the story, and you'll see that what I'm saying is right. I remember sitting right there down to dinner at my table, talking to my brother about whatever it was. It was about 11 at night. I had gone in and got my shot. I got my shot at, I think it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon the previous day. So one day had passed. So, you know, to 4 o'clock, that's 24 hours. So it was at 31 hours, something really started to come on. So it was 11 o'clock. 31 hours is when this started. I was talking to my brother, and all of a sudden, I got a wicked pain down my leg. And you're going to say that's adhesive arachnoiditis. But no. This, although it can cause that something was happening that, you know, I had already gone through all my day, and I was just sitting down to dinner. I was okay. My legs really started to burn, and I believe it was triggering my immune system. And I went to bed, and I was like, there was pain all over my body. My whole body was burning. And I'm like, wow, you know, like, okay, take your sleep meds. Just go to sleep, and maybe you'll wake up and you'll be fine. I knew it was unusual. And so, whatever, I was probably asleep by 12. Then I woke up around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Why? Because I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe. I woke up because I could not breathe. That was I guess that was the second thing I noticed, because I went to bed with that pain. But the second part of its manifestation was I could not breathe. I was really short of breath for about 4 hours. And it's not like I hadn't dealt with those things in my life, but not like that. I deal with things, abdominal disorders that, you know, will cause shortness of breath. I have a lower esophageal sphincter issue. So I understand. This was not normal. I woke up because I could not breathe. Everything that I say came together. There was nothing that I suffered that did not come together. It all happened at once. Well, over a number of hours. I woke up, so measured 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was in bed, and my arms and my legs were shaking. And I took one. It was shaking so much. I took one arm. I put it over to my to my left arm, and I tried to stop it, and I couldn't even stop it. I could not stop it because I was shaking so much. You're like, oh, it's like the flu symptoms. No, this was not that. That may have been intertwined, but that wasn't it. I was scared in my bed, and I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't want to get out of my bed. I didn't want to get out of my bed because I didn't want to take my pain meds too early, right? I didn't want to. I have schedules. But it was so bad. By around 6 o'clock, now I got up to go to the bathroom, and when I stood up, I'm like, man, there's something wrong. I feel like I'm dying. So it's 31 hours after I got it. So it was the injection. I don't know, man, I felt like death going to my bathroom, back to my bed, and finally I just got to get up and take my pain meds. And I'm the type of person who will take 3 times as much as a regular person will take before I do something about it, because I'm used to a lot of pain. And so I came to my counter, took my pain meds, and I knew there was something wrong. I took I had a fever of it was like maybe 102. Took Tylenol, took my pain opiates, and my fever went down because of the meds that I take, both for abdominal pain, for body pain, for that type of thing. And my heart was pounding. It was like pounding, and it was pounding, but also in my abdomen. I don't know how to explain it. I had horrible abdominal pain. I'm talking about acute. I suffer with kidney stones. Okay, so I know. I now have a disorder called biliary hyperkinesia, gallbladder hyperkinesia. I think it's like women can get, or people can get gallbladder dyskinesia, which is different than this, but mainly the same symptoms. It's essentially the feeling of having a gallstone 24 hours a day. But in it's the muscle of that sphincter that's causing spasms. So it feels like a gallstone. But with that other with the dyskinesia one, you can get it. It causes pancreatitis. You have to have that operated on. But this, it's called a functional disorder. Not many people have this, so what am I supposed to say? Who am I supposed to talk to? In any case, well, I'll get at that. My heart was pounding. All I could do was hold on to my counter, and I was scared. And, I tried to go about my regular day. I was like calling the pharmacy, calling my dad. I didn't know what to do. I was scared. I felt like this injection, it was like it changed my whole immune system. I felt cursed. I was so sick. If you know any of my story, you know the things I've been through, and this was right up there, man. Yeah, I was scared. My heart just continuously pounded, and I still did my workouts. I still did my regular stuff, which wasn't much at that time, but my life came to a standstill. I didn't notice till later that day I had a rash extending from my abdomen about my belly button all the way to my neck, all the way to the base of my neck. I'm like, man, I must have had at least an allergic reaction. What is this? It stayed for a week, and there was definitely something wrong with my heart, because it was my heart. It just kept pounding and pounding. And so shortness of breath, rash, the abdominal pain, the pounding heart, and I have to believe, because I was not checked in time, because whatever it is, pericarditis, myocarditis, you have to have those images within a certain amount of time, because that inflammation of the myocardium and the pericardium go away, and a lot of people get better from it, right? Probably most people recover from myocarditis. And one of my troubles here is that here are people getting settlements for myocarditis and pericarditis. Of course, I'm not going to be able to prove that now, but by my story, maybe I will. There's more to tell. But I was left with a permanent gallbladder disorder. That happened with everything. And I'll get to that. So it's like having I can't put my hand in my gallbladder. I only went to the hospital after around, I think it was 6 days. And they couldn't give me much information, and my rash was just starting to go down. He said, you probably just had a reaction. You know, can you imagine what the doctors and nurses were told to say to people? I continued to go on my walks, okay? At that time I walked with a cane because I was still rehabilitating my body from adhesive arachnoiditis. And I knew there was a problem with my heart. This was really scary, man. I felt really alone during this time. This is because of my dad's email saying this thing. Sure, I'll try to fight once more. I'll try to call a couple places. See if they'll take on my case. I want justice more than I want any settlement. I tell you the truth. I want justice for what those sons of bitches did. Moderna. No less than 30 hospital visits. 30. 10 hours, 15 hours. Horrible, man. And so I don't know, it may have been after 2 weeks. I'm not sure the timeline on this. But this went on for at least a couple weeks, at least 2 weeks. The further I tried to walk, I felt like I could fall down on the ground and fall asleep. It was like my heart wasn't pumping efficiently. I was scared, and I would go in and I would get a haircut. At that time, I wasn't even well enough to shave my own head because I have a shoulder injury, but I would go on a walk by myself, and I felt like my lights were going to go out. This is not normal. This was never normal. 31 hours after the shot, of course it was associated with that. I felt like I was going to pass out on the ground, so when I'm walking, I'm scared, and the way I was thinking, listen, I'm a tough person, okay? I'll say that straight out. I'm a tough person. But this was very scary. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know it was my heart then. I only put 2 and 2 together after. How many times can you go to the hospital and not be told anything, and you just say it's just better not to go? And no matter how many times I called, I must have called my own pharmacy 10 times just about this. And I said, no, it's not normal what I'm going through. And they kept explaining to me the flu symptoms. I'm like, what? Man. And note, I was left with acute abdominal pain. The pain I have right now is acute. It's acute all the time. That's what gallbladder hyperkinesia is. I ask you, go look at a video. See what the people are like in those videos. And that's just one thing I suffer with. I'm going to get to that though. I take a little pill for it, and for my other abdominal pain, it's called Buscopan, because it's a smooth muscle relaxant. Give me a second. So I got a pace. It's very hard for me to make a video and stay still. My life is much better today. This story upsets me because I never got any justice for what was done. So I had to keep repeatedly going back to the ER. That wasted a lot of my time. And so the first times I went, I'm like, my abdomen really, really hurts. And I was on oral Toradol for inflammation of my spine and pain in my legs. And so the first times they thought it's a gallstone because it matched the gallstone perfectly. If you push your hand hard enough in my gallbladder, I will scream. I'm not kidding you. It's that bad. It feels like there's a jagged stone in there. So every time they do it, it feels like that. It's like that all the time. It's called a functional disorder. Yes, I could have it taken out, but there are warnings about that. And you have to find a doctor who's willing because it's functional. They didn't know what it was because it's such a rare disorder. So I said 1 in 280,000. How lucky am I? Right? The wrong lottery I keep winning. And so I go once. They don't know what it is because my blood is coming out okay. Go again, and all of a sudden they start to, you know those feelings, right? I dealt with that my whole life. But I was vindicated with diagnosis though. I'm talking about for pain disorders in my body. I have suffered a lot psychologically because of physicians who didn't know what they were doing. But keep listening to my story. I pointed out the diagnosis. They got it wrong. I got it right. So it got to a point, I remember I went to a visit at this very same hospital, and I said something about a test, and she said, what was it? The test for your gallbladder. I said, you can get a test for your gallbladder. What was it? It was something that sounds similar, a test for the heart and for the gallbladder, but she didn't know what it was. And when I said it, she was like angry at me. She's like, there's no such thing as that. And I corrected that. My dad was with me in that visit. This is the way I was treated, as if I didn't know what I was talking about. I felt so frustrated. I also have autism, which makes my nervous system more hypersensitive than other people's. This has been the way, this is probably all people with autism have this type of thing, or people with ADHD. What is the name of the test? I'm going to have to look. I hope it doesn't cancel out the screen. If it does, please click on the next video if it cancels out. I was so scared of going on walks, not because of people, but because I could no longer walk the same. It was June, July, August of 2021. Things are not always the same. Things switch back and forth. That's just the nature of people getting illnesses. I don't know what this was. I didn't know if I had a heart attack. I'm not even joking you. There were 2 days in a row that I had to get my dad to walk with me, and I could barely put one foot in front of the other. I thought I was done with. I was scared. I started to cry. out on the road in front of my building. I didn't know. And my dad wasn't even like, he should have been very concerned, but he wasn't. I don't mean to, he just didn't know. I already had difficulty walking. Man, I couldn't put one foot in front of the other. I believe it was my heart. It was my heart. That lasted for 2 days. Eventually that feeling of my heart stopped. So they did an endoscopy, you know, for precautions, and they gave me one pretty quick. And bear with me on this. They found forming 4 ulcers in my stomach because of the oral Toradol, the only thing that helped me for inflammation of the spine and the pain in the legs associated. And I said, no. Are they bleeding? No, they're not. I said, this isn't it. And I felt cursed at that moment. I'm like, now I have to come off the oral Toradol. And the only times in my life I had done that, to come off Toradol, my life went downhill. I couldn't walk. But I had to do it. To prove them, I said to them, this is an incidental finding. So I weaned off the Toradol. I don't take that Toradol anymore. I finally made it through with the help of God. And it turned out it wasn't that at all. And so there's an x-ray. I kept going for abdominal pain. I went to a surgeon, a general surgeon. Let's check it. What is this? X-ray of the gallbladder. I don't know why I forget it, but what's the name? You have to lie down on an X-ray table for 2 hours. No. Hydroscan, there it is. Hydroscan. They give you something to. They're supposed to give you an injection of something in your veins that sets off your gallbladder, so they can measure. There it is. That's what the woman was. It's called your ejection fraction. In your heart, you have ejection fraction of the blood flow, I guess, right? In a specific amount of time. In the same way, she looked down on me because she didn't know there was one for the gallbladder, and she didn't know. Looking down on me because I knew what it was and she didn't. And so the first time I got this test, you know, I had to go downtown, and it wasn't easy for me to travel in those days, and I was very sick. And I went, my dad took me, and I lay on the table for 2 hours, and they said, we don't have this injection. We don't have this injection that you're needed for the test. Please use Ensure instead. Ensure with all the sugar and all the, but I have lactose intolerance and I can't eat gluten. So that test was already getting messed up already. They said, okay, just eat your candy bar. It was like a granola bar. Drink a whole bunch of water and we'll do it. So we did it. The test came out wrong. It said I had a hypogallbladder. I felt that was unjustified because that was going to screw up my test. Thanks, you don't have the regular shot that you should have that's needed for this. And what I said to them is, you don't have stipulations in place for people who are lactose intolerant. That was it, right? If someone comes to that test and they're lactose intolerant, it's not going to work. And they knew I was right. And the radiologist was a good man. He was really nice to me. He was nice enough that around 6 months later, he called me out of nowhere, praise be to God, and said, we have that shot now. It's called CCK. CCK. I came back because I wanted to know, and I got the test done, and so I had my dad with me in the room. Actually, you have to lie on your back for 2 hours, and you can't move. And a thing comes down on you like this big X-ray, big heavy thing. Wouldn't want to be in it with an earthquake. And he said, when we get the results, I'm going to read it right in front of you. You don't have to wait. I'm just going to, because he felt bad for me. He was a good man. So we started looking at the numbers. He started looking at the numbers. And I take Buscopan, so that my number would have even been worse if I hadn't taken it. And he said, your ejection fraction looks near perfect. And he said, it's at 93%. It's almost at 100. And I thought, hey, you know, that's good. But I didn't care if it was bad. I wanted an answer. You know, you don't want to keep going through this door and that door and that door and wasting your life. And because you're in a lot of pain, you just want to know what it is. Even if it's cancer. I'm not even joking, man. I was so sick. And I have an analytical mind. And as I was leaving, I thought, well, if there's hypo gallbladder, is there not hyper gallbladder? And I wasn't taking really Toradol because I had been weaning it down. And so I asked him that question. He said no. That night, as I was sitting down to my dinner and eating, I thought to myself, well, look it up, see if you're right. In fact, I was right. It's called biliary hyperkinesia. That number is really, really high. It's almost as high as it gets. Like, you know, the symptoms would be the same if it was 100. So I was right at near the end of the spectrum of biliary hyperkinesia in a man. For a woman, it was 8 times less common than a man. So whatever the incidence for a woman, times that by 8 for a man, which was 280,000. And so there I was, and I had my diagnosis for that. So what I said about those ulcers that had not bled yet, my you know, what I thought was right. And so obviously I healed from those things, from those ulcers over time, and I was left with a permanent gallbladder disorder, and it's left me with ability. You can probably notice, like, I don't just move back and forth here because of adhesive arachnoiditis. It's because of my abdomen. And so I say this, yes, I got my heart imaged. Oh, but a year later, I got it imaged anyways, just to look. And my heart, I said it was fine. But I found something that evaded me since I was 20, which was, I think it's AFib, you know, when you get those big adrenaline rushes of the heart. That was good to know. And I wore one of those cuffs, you know, for 24-hour type thing. So I did that, and I was glad I had one of those big adrenaline rushes. I get them often enough, you know. And I caught it on there. But no, there was no, it wasn't imaged within 6 months, so they wouldn't find it anyway. So most people, when they get a myocarditis or pericarditis, from what I perceive, let me read this. That's not it. So I'm studying this right now, actually, you know. I'm studying it, and I have a book right in front of me. I'm studying all the organs and the heart and everything. I'm training to be a personal support worker. So I know I just studied the myocardium, the pericardium, and the endocardium. So, you know, one is the sac of the outside, the thin sac, then there's the actual muscle, and then there's the inner one. And I can't tell you whichever one was hit. But due to all the symptoms, the abdominal pain that just wouldn't stop. So there were 2 types of abdominal pains, by the way, but I don't know how to differentiate them. I couldn't eat butter anymore and fats. I started getting diarrhea, and I didn't know why. It was my gallbladder. And So I went down from 125 pounds to 100 pounds. I was 100 pounds when this thing was hitting me. You know, like, and I'm not worthy of justice and a settlement. My life feels hyper because of this gallbladder. So now I'm left with a permanent. Sorry, I want to read this first. Yes, most people who get myocarditis recover because it's, you know, inflammation of either the outer lining or the actual heart muscle. It's just like inflamed like any other part of your body, and it causes symptoms. So I woke up because I couldn't breathe. So I had the breathing, and I had the pounding heart that wouldn't stop. When I walked, I felt everywhere I was gonna fall down on the ground. If I would have laid down on the ground, I could have fallen asleep on the ground. That's how much it was affecting my heart. I was scared as hell. Yes, most people recover from myocarditis. In many cases, resolve on their own or with treatment. So, while some individuals may experience complications, a significant portion of patients with myocarditis fully recover, often within a few weeks to a few months. Nothing, you know. So now I'm left with biliary hyperkinesia, and of course it came with this. It wasn't like, you know, like a day after I got this. It was all here immediately. So my argument is that I'm left with something worse than myocarditis. So if you don't believe me, go on a video and look up biliary hyperkinesia, or gallbladder hyperkinesia. Look at the people in the videos. They're writhing back and forth. They're talking in bed how much they can't wait to get it out. So imagine having a gallstone, right? An active gallstone. That's what my life is like every single day, from the time I get up till the time I go to bed. And these sons of bitches won't even listen to me. I've put my stuff into I've applied. They haven't even reached out or done anything to me. Our system is broken, and what's always mattered to me in my life is I'd like justice. Thanks for watching. Justice. We all want justice from the big pharma.